In this video tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make the sterling silver braided rope cuff bracelet. If you would like more detailed information on how to make the braided rope, please watch our video on weaving a fine silver ring. So I have a rope section that I previously braided. I have two single rope sections, two pieces of 14 gauge sterling silver half round wire, and a section of 24 gauge sterling silver sheet. So I am flooding the sheet with hard solder, and that is going to be the base for attaching all of the pieces. We'll be doing sweat soldering. So I'm putting on my first piece of 14 gauge half round wire, and we need to heat the entire piece until the solder begins to flow, and solder will flow towards the direction that the heat is coming from. So what our goal is to get the solder to flow from the sheet underneath the section of half round wire. My rotating soldering tray kept spinning too much, so I swapped over to soldering on the fire brick. And so it's really just going to be a matter of continuing to add pieces as we go and sweat soldering them on. Be sure to flux frequently. You really can't over flux. I'm using Mighty Flux, spray-on flux. It helps prevent fire scale from building up, and also allows the solder to flow. So I'm just continuing to heat the 24 gauge sheet and adding pieces. Now I elevated the entire assembly because a lot of the heat was getting absorbed into the brick and away from the metal. So I've elevated it in order to help concentrate the heat in the metal. So most of the time I would pickle in between adding pieces. If it wasn't getting too terribly dirty, if enough flux is used and it wasn't getting terribly dirty, I would just go ahead and add the next piece on. But it's recommended to pickle between adding each section in. Solder does not flow on dirty surfaces, therefore it's important to keep things clean. It's very important to make sure you have a full connection between the half round sterling wire and the sheet on the bottom, because we're going to be trimming off that excess, and if you have any gaps, it will show. I was having trouble with my acetylene torch, so I've moved over to a butane torch. We sell this butane torch head along with many other jewelry making tools and supplies on our website. Check the description box below for the link to many of these tools. Now everything has been cleaned up now, pickled, rinsed, and using metal shears to trim off the excess 24 gauge sheet material. And then doing some rough filing on the sides. So we're going to be blending in the half round with the sheet on the back and making it seamless. the rough file makes pretty quick work of material, larger amounts of material. Then moving into the number 2 half round ring file, which is really one of my favorites. I'm just touching that up and getting that nice and smooth. So I'm going to cut my bracelet to the proper length using my Kybex flush cutters. My apologies, Kaiba flush cutters. They're great for heavy materials. And now using that same ring file, I am making a recess on the ends, both sides. And that is where we're going to add our little decorative ends. It's not truly an end cap, it's more of a decorative end. And going to be using some pattern wire from Rio Grande. I purchase almost all of my sterling supplies from Rio Grande, and that is the item number for the pattern wire if you would like to purchase some for yourself. It's a very pretty pattern. I'm going to be sweat soldering these sections on to all of these recessed areas on the bracelet, both front and back. I'm using medium solder, heating it with a butane torch until the solder flows. I'm going to do that front and back, both ends. And using my half round ring file, now I'm going to start cleaning up, dressing up the edges, removing any excess material. Also using some sandpaper, which isn't shown here in the video, but using sandpaper to get finer detail. I took it over to the bench buffer. Using black compound, which is a cutting compound, will remove fine scratches and imperfections, and getting everything buffed up nice and shiny. These are little leather finger cots that I sewed on my home sewing machine. They're great because silver in particular gets extremely hot when it is being buffed, so much so that you really can't hold it. So these do help a lot. So with things like the rope pattern, the compound really gets ground right in there. So pop it into the ultrasonic and let the ultrasonic blast the compound out of all of the nooks and crannies. And some people ask me about my maker's mark, and I am putting it on the back of the bracelet with a fiber marking machine. Now it's time to darken up the recesses. Liver of sulfur in hot water. And I'm going to add a little dash of ammonia. It's a little boost to the liver of sulfur. And just let that soak until it gets as dark as you would like. You want to rinse that really well. Also rinse in a baking soda and water solution so the process does stop. Now I'm removing liver of sulfur from the high spots and leaving it into the recessed areas. I prefer liver of sulfur on my jewelry because I feel it gives more definition and interest to the pattern. And now I'm going to bend it around an oval ring mandrel. I ended up making it a little more rounded than a true oval. And you'll see that here at the end. If you do not have your pieces soldered on well, you're going to find out during this process when they start to pop off. So make sure you're soldering all of your pieces on securely. And a quick polish with jewelry polishing cloth, and you have a stunning, stunning bracelet. Very easy way to make ends. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Post them below. If you like what we do, please like and subscribe.